Hi guys, welcome back to the T ordering app. Let's finish up. We have two more activities to go. The order activity, the order summary activity. The order activity basically takes care of the customization of the T flavor, where we're going to have different constants and fields, which are identifiers to use. And the summary will actually be a recap of the activity, the ordering activity that was carried out. So without much ado, let's start with the other activity, which extends app compact activity. And we're going to be having a couple of fields right there. The first, private. Here we go. We have different final constants, which will serve as identifier to the ordering process in the activity. Different like the total cost, the T name, the size, the make type. Different attributes are being handled. With these fields. Now we're going to have methods that will actually carry out the actions. Let's first of all provide the onCreate method. As the bundle. Save instance state. It's called a super. Create. Save the instance state. Let's set the content view. Layout. Activity order. And let's initialize the toolbar. Toolbar. Pass the class. Find view by ID. Let's get the ID, which is order toolbar. And we'll set support action bar, which is the menu. Toolbar is the object and parameter there. Now let's get this. Is just going to work with the no action bar of the theme. Get support action bar and set title. And it's actually going to be calling the strings, which is the get string. We actually didn't have code any string values, so we need to actually point them to their corresponding string name. String and the order title. That's fine. Now we're going to set header name and the image depending on which item was clicked on the grid view. So let's pass in the intent to get intent, an object, call on the get intent, and let's have the empty name variable, it's a string, which is actually going to get the intent get string extra from the menu activity, which calls the identifier, which is the extra T name. Can you see how we're actually getting response from the intent, which is this, the string name we've actually specified for the extra. Now let's have a text view with an identifier of T name text view. It's casted to its class text view. Find view by ID. T name text view. Set T name text view that sets the text. Cool. That's to the text view. We've gotten the value. Now let's set the cost to default, which will actually be another text view. That's the cost of flavor text view. And also cast that to its class. Get the ID. Now the costs. So let's set the text appropriately. All these can actually be JSON figures, so you can improve more on this mark. Don't just think it's a done deal. It's so open for improvement, and it's now depend on how versatile you can be when it comes to Android development, which you should have had a full grip by now if you've been following my videos. Now let's pass in 3 methods, which will set up the size spinner, will set up the milk, and sugar. These are all spinners, which can actually be gotten from a SQLite database. So I'm just giving you different hints on how to start setting up advanced projects in Android. Size spinner. Those are the 3 methods we'll be using. Setup, milk, spinner. Setup, sugar. Fine. So let's start up with the drop down spinner for the user to select the T or size. Let's have a private void setup spinner method. Here we go for the setup size spinner. We initialize the spinner, creating an object called mSize spinner, and we create an array adapter using the string array and the default mSize spinner layout, which is this layout, the simple spinner item, and we specify the layout to use when the list of choices appear, which is this, whereby we'll set the drop down view resource, and we apply the adapter to the spinner. When we set the adapter, which is actually going to be the data, the data source of the spinner, and we actually call the integer mSelected to the constant values, which actually run through here with the switch statement to check for each different sizes and for each case of sizes. That's what that spinner does. Now the adapter is an abstract class on nothing selected must also be defined, which is this. So we have that set up for the size spinner. Now let's get our hands on the next method, which will actually be the setup milk spinner, which is also a private void setup milk spinner. Now let's have the structure of the spinner. The same thing applies to the setup milk spinner. We created a spinner object binding to its view by ID, and we create an array, an adapter array, using the string array and the default size spinner layout, just like we did for the earlier method. And we specify the layout to use when the list of choice appears, which is that, and we actually apply the adapter for the M spinner, whereby we set the on items selected listener, whereby we set the integer selected to the constant values, using the case of the make type, whereby we get different type of string values. If the type is null, if it's not fat, if it's a 1%, depends on the kind of milk you are looking at. That's attributes of the milk. So it can actually be attributes of probably pizza, or attributes of a particular meal. So that you need more features in that particular meal, or just want it without much details. These are what you actually use using your switch statement to specify which particular attributes you are selecting. And that's that for the setup milk spinner. Let's have for the last method, which is the sugar spinner. So we're going to actually have it as a private field as well, method rather, private void setup sugar spinner. And let's have the body of this particular method. The setup sugar spinner has the same flow, but this time the identifiers, which are the attributes, are different, which are based on the sugar type. If it's sweet, the type 50%, 25, 75, or you want a lot of sugar, that's just what the spinner of the sugar is actually populating, but also using the same adapter, drop down view, and of the previous method. Now let's get to increment the quantity and recalculate the price. And once we have higher quantity, we should be able to have a logic to calculate the price it will be. So we are going to actually create a method to hold that, which will be public void increment. It's a view Now let's call the M quantity. So we get to increment by 1, and we'll display, we call the display quantity method. Quantity to actually undo that. Get to have that method created, so don't bother about that. That's actually going to trigger the calculation. Now let's get the total price equals to the calculate price method, which will also be done. Now call the display method to actually show that total price. Don't bother about the red signs. These are methods that we'll still have to create. Once we get there, I will take you back to what they actually meant. Now the decrement, which is just the opposite of the increment, to decrease the quantity and also affect the price change. View. Now we'll test if the M quantity is greater than 0. And now we're going to run this same chunk of instruction, but this time to the word a document. You get it? So from here, we'll get to have the calculate price, the display quantity, the display cost, and also the priority to actually pass the intent. But we'll first of all undo the calculate price. Let's get to have the setup. Public. Let's make that a private. It's actually doing something private. Calculating. Teacher. Calculate price. Get a body. The calculate price houses a switch statement which passes the M size as parameter, and calculations have been done. The quantity are multiplied by the small price based on the price tag on the small given to the small price, and that has been stored in the variable called total price. The same thing goes for if the T size is medium, multiply by the medium, and if it's large, multiply by the large price tag, which you now return the total price. So now we're going to have the display quantity and the display cost, which is our method. The display quantity takes an attribute, an integer attribute of the number of T's, which actually sets the text to the view with an identifier of quantity text view right there in the layout, and set the text to that particular text view. The same thing goes for the display cost. It takes in a parameter of an integer total price, and actually gets the currency instance, which is a particular instance of the currency. Probably using a kind of different currency, dollars, pounds, yen, euro. So it gets the instance, which is the format, and also pass the total price as its parameter, and set the text to the identifier cost text view right there in the layout. Now we have the method which will be triggered on click of the button to preview T. This will be triggered like, okay, it can actually be, you can have different aspects in this button. Probably on click you can actually save to cart, and at the same time call for payment integration. This is where you can actually do that, and at the same time share the summary of the whole transaction saved somewhere in the SQLite database, for record purpose. You can do a lot, you can extend more a lot here, but we're just going to have a summary of the activity of the order. What about we need to put into extras? We'll call the order summary activity at this point, and we'll pass the total price, the T name, the size, the milk type that was selected, the sugar type, and as well the quantity that was ordered. Now we start the activity to usher us down to the order summary. So that takes us down to that summary. So the summary is empty at now, but we need to get all intents and display them appropriately. So we're going to extend compact, and override the onCreate method. Protected void create. Let's pass the bundle. Save instance state. Inside this method, we'll be doing a lot. We'll be getting the extras, and we'll actually be displaying them as well. So we're going to set the party. The create method we call the super class. Set the content view to the activity order. We initialize the toolbar and set the title. And now we call the intent to get those extras that were pushed in from the order activity, which will get the T name, the total price, the size, the milk type, sugar type, and also the quantity ordered. We pass them into different variables for keep. Now we trigger the display order summary. This is actually going to display, use those values from the intent and display them right there on the layout, which pass up to 6 parameters: name, price, size, the type, the sugar type, and also the quantity. Now I'm going to actually create that method. It's a caller method to get something done. It's going to be a private void display order summary, and now all attributes: string, name, price, string for size, and for the milk type, and the sugar type, and also for quantity. A lot of parameters right there. Now let's have this body structure to display those details. Here we go. We call the T name. We set the T name in order summary. We also set the quantity. We set the T size. We set the milk, type, and this is the sugar type, and this is the price, of the order, right there in the order summary. Whereby we actually did a converter to convert, get the number format and the currency based on the currency instance. That's been done right out of the box from Java. And we're going to create one more method to actually send a mail. This is actually going to send the mail that I've just made an order. Send mail. It's a view. We'll be talking about URL pass. We get the string, which is the email message that says I just ordered a delicious tea from the tea app, and just like telling you what you've just done. And we use an intent to pass it using the mail to pass this message, and we'll put the extras, which is as the extra subject. We get the string of the order summary email subject. We create a subject and also the text value, which is the email message over here, just so that it's going to be in a mail form. It's going to actually have a subject and the body. Now we call the intent to resolve activity to get the package manager and start an activity, so that there's actually going to be an application to undo this intent. So the last assignment, or let's say the one assignment I'm going to give you here, is I want you to implement the send mail. You can actually do that anywhere. You can do that at the toolbar. You can create a mailbox icon to actually trigger this method, and you can also use a share icon to trigger this method. Just implement that. It's dormant. I want you to implement that in the application. So that's fine. We've come to the end of the T mock application. This is a full structured mockup, which is quite useful if you actually want to get something good from Android programming. And I will implore you to extend more on this if you like. I'll be uploading the source file to my GitHub. Pick it up, free to use, and also make reference to the Apache open source license. Don't just try to keep it and think it's something free and it's open source. So that's fine. I'll be showing this in an emulator, so that we're actually going to look at the customization activity and the summary actually looks. Before we get the emulator started, let's touch the manifest, which is the metadata of your application. We've not registered the activities we used. Don't forget that. Anyway, if you try to run it, it's going to crash, but it's going to tell you you need to register those calling activity right there in your manifest. So the first one, which is the order activity, and let's register the summary too, which is actually going to be the order summary activity. Need to register them right there in the manifest. Now let's have the metadata of let's come that Google that Android GMS version and the value, which is integer Google Play Services version. That's fine. We are good to go. So let's have our test done.